Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, both here on Parliament Hill and virtually. My name is Barbara Barrett. I'm the Executive Director of the Frontier Duty Free Association. We're here alongside Mayor Mike Bradley from Sarnia and Mayor Drew Dilkens of Windsor to highlight a growing crisis in the border communities across Canada. Today we are releasing an urgent open letter signed by 15 mayors from border communities calling on the federal government to take immediate action to save Canada's land border duty-free stores. These stores and the communities they support have endured a long road through the pandemic with years of uncertainty and financial loss. But what we are facing now is even more acute. The strain in the U.S.-Canada relationship has triggered an immediate and dramatic drop in cross-border traffic. As soon as tensions began between our two countries, our industry saw the impact right away. Customer numbers fell almost overnight, and the sharp decline has continued. Land border duty-free stores rely entirely on people crossing the border. When travel slows or stops, our stores, all independently owned, family-run, and often the main employer in their towns, are the first to feel it, and often the hardest hit. Our communities can't afford to lose these businesses. That's why today's letter is so urgent, and why we're calling on the government to step in before the damage becomes permanent. I'll now turn it over to our president, Tania Lee, to share the main message from the open letter and our proposed solutions. Tania?
Thank you, Barbara. Our open letter to Prime Minister Carney and Minister Champagne reflects the collective voice of mayors from border communities right across Canada. Their message is clear. Urgent action is needed, or we risk losing independent, family-run duty-free stores that have been the cornerstone of our town for decades. Land border duty-free stores aren't multinational chains. They're small businesses, often the main employer in their communities. They create local jobs, they drive tourism, and they keep local economies strong. New data shows revenue losses of up to 80% in some stores. If the current trend continues, 1/3 of our members say they could be forced to close. Our requests to the federal government are straightforward. Number one, deliver immediate liquidity support for stores hardest hit by U.S. tariffs and the downturn in cross-border travel. Number two, issue a ministerial directive reaffirming our export status and removing any regulatory uncertainty. Number three, align excise tax policy with our export status so we can compete fairly with our U.S. counterparts. These are practical, targeted solutions that can help keep local businesses and jobs alive. Our ask is modest, but the need is urgent. Now, I'd like to invite my mayor, Mayor of Sarnia, Mayor Mike Bradley, to share his perspective on how these challenges are playing out in our community. Mayor Mike.
Very much, Tania. The message is very, very simple. This is a crisis. There are 3,000 jobs at stake right across this country at duty-free stores. And as my colleague, Mayor Dilkens knows that we went through this through COVID. When the border was closed for 2 years, it had a tremendous impact on their operations. And they've struggled ever since to get back on their feet. And what has compounded the issue is the dramatic decrease at our own border crossing. It's 25% month to month. And they need immediate action. And I want to point out, I think one of the key issues, this is not a fat cat industry. The people we've spoken to who have these particular operations across this country are ordinary working people who live in their community, employ people in their community, and give back to their community. I think this is a really good test case for the Carney government. They said they would operate like a business. There's a strong business case to keep this industry alive. And the reality is this, that if the industry fails across this country, some future government in the next 5 to 10 years is going to have to reinvent the duty-free industry. We don't want to see that happen. Let's build on what we have.
Mayor Dilkens?
Well, thanks very much. Thanks very much, Mayor Bradley, for those comments. I certainly echo Mayor Bradley's comments with respect to the crisis that is happening right now in this particular industry. And I know that our local duty-free stores, of course, Windsor is home to the busiest commercial border crossing between Canada and the United States. We have about 6,000 people who cross to work every day from Windsor into Detroit. And those folks are continuing to cross into the United States. It's really on the discretionary travel side where we see Canadians making a different choice with respect to entering the United States, which is having an immediate and dramatic impact on duty-free operations in our city and across the country. And so if we look at sales in the Windsor region, they're down by about 40%. And these are independently small-owned businesses who have just come back through COVID. We are trying to get our traffic back to pre-COVID levels. We're not quite there yet. And now we've got another hit to these businesses that actually help drive traffic and actually help employ people in our communities. And so I think what's happening here in Windsor and what I hear my colleague in Sarnia talk about is it's reflecting a national trend that we're seeing in border communities like ours across the country. And that's one of the reasons we set up an organization like the Border Mayors Alliance, of which Mayor Bradley is a strong part of this organization, recognizing that our communities are going to get hit first and going to get hit the hardest. And so the asks by the Frontier Duty Free Association are simple. Tania and Barbara enunciated those asks. And we believe that those things can actually make a significant and impactful difference while we navigate these choppy waters together with our friends in the United States. And while this matter is being settled, let's make sure that we keep people working. Let's make sure that we keep these organizations strong because things will get back to normal at some time in the future. It's this choppy part that we have to get through together. Thanks very much.
Merci, Maire Dilkens, and merci, Maire Bradley. Aujourd'hui, nous lançons une lettre ouverte adressée au premier ministre Carney et au ministre Champagne, signée par 15 maires de communautés frontalières partout au Canada. Le message est simple. Il faut agir maintenant, sinon nos magasins hors taxes risquent de disparaître pour de bon. Les magasins hors taxes ne sont pas des chaînes multinationales. Ce sont des entreprises familiales et indépendantes. Dans de nombreuses petites communautés frontalières, ils sont souvent le principal employeur. Ils créent des emplois locaux, soutiennent le tourisme et font partie du tissu économique de nos régions depuis des décennies. Or, nos données récentes indiquent que certains de nos membres connaissent des pertes de revenus allant jusqu'à 80%. Et près du tiers disent qu'ils risquent de devoir fermer leurs portes si rien ne change. Aujourd'hui, au nom des membres et des maires signataires, nous demandons 3 choses au gouvernement fédéral. Premièrement, d'offrir un soutien financier immédiat aux magasins hors taxes les plus touchés par les tarifs américains et la baisse du trafic frontalier. Deuxièmement, d'émettre une directive ministérielle qui réaffirme notre statut d'exportation et clarifie la réglementation. Troisièmement, d'aligner la politique de la taxe d'assises avec notre statut d'exportation pour que nous puissions concurrencer à armes égales avec les États-Unis. Ce sont des solutions concrètes, raisonnables et qui peuvent être mises en œuvre rapidement pour préserver les emplois et les entreprises de nos communautés. Notre demande est modeste, mais la situation est urgente. Barbara?
Merci, Philippe, and thank you to Mayor Dilkens and Mayor Bradley. I want to acknowledge the leadership shown by our community mayors, especially those who have joined us today, Mayor Dilkens, Mayor Bradley, and those who signed the letter from across Canada. We appreciate the federal government's ongoing commitment to supporting Canadian businesses, and we're grateful for any steps taken to ensure we do not lose these vital stores that are so important to border communities across the country. By answering this call and working together, we can protect local jobs, sustain our border communities and economies, and keep these businesses at the heart of border communities for years to come. Thank you, and we now open the floor to take your questions.
A question for the mayors. We're expecting a bill today on border security. It's expected to include bolstered security at the borders, new tools for police and intelligence agencies, and new powers for the CBSA to examine goods destined for export. And I'm just wondering, as border mayors, how do you feel about that? What would you like to see in this bill?
I can lead off if you want. I haven't seen the legislation, but I certainly welcome it. And I think all the border mayors want a free-flowing border, but they also want security. And times have changed, and go back to 9/11 and how the passport laws, things have become more and more complicated across the border. And then the tariff wars have made it much more difficult. But anything that does enhance our security in a positive way and is located in border cities and driven by border cities like Windsor and Sarnia and the Sioux and right across this country, I think is very, very much needed.
Yeah, I would echo Mayor Bradley's comments, except I would also add that, we don't want to see a thickening of the border. We want to make sure that safe travelers and regular travel can continue to happen with as friction-free as possible. But when it comes to border security and making sure that we keep the bad guys out, we are all in on wanting to do that. I know Premier Ford in the most recent provincial budget has indicated that they will be procuring 2 helicopters, one for the city of Windsor, one for the Niagara Falls area, to be able to enhance border security in our area. We're appreciative of that and look forward to helping be part of the solution. And we look forward to seeing the legislation that will necessarily impact our communities today.
Yes, questions for Mayor Dilkens, David Baxter from the Canadian Press. Just in the last Stats Canada job reports we saw, unemployment was around 11% in Windsor. Of course, the tariffs hitting the auto sector hard, but how much is the decline in cross-border traffic playing into the unemployment rate in Windsor?
Yeah, I mean, this is, seeing the number hit 11% certainly is very concerning for us, which is why we have been trying to be very active and vocal, letting folks know that we've got this wonderful industry that we have created together with the United States and Mexico that was working very, very well. And so President Trump, in his approach here, is certainly creating disruption that is completely unnecessary, will have an impact negatively on our community and our country, but also his own. And it's just a matter of time if he continues with this particular approach. And so at the end of the day, we hope that there is a resolution. And what's the last part of your question? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Oh, sorry, just that. And how much is cross-border traffic playing into the unemployment rate, or like the decline in cross-border traffic?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it plays in directly to the unemployment rate, but I'll tell you, when I talked about the 6,000 people that cross to work in Detroit every day, that really hasn't stopped. And a lot of those folks may be casual customers of the duty-free, but the duty-free business in our community is generally driven by those who are going over for sporting events, for leisure travel, and that is what you're seeing decline dramatically. And it's not just in Windsor, it's across our country where Canadians are saying, you know what, we just don't want to go to the United States. We don't want to spend our money there right now. We don't want to travel there. And so they're making those types of choices. And the real difficult part for the duty-free business is that they're just trying to recover from COVID, where they were effectively closed for 2 years. And so they've already been hit very, very hard. In fact, probably as hard as we've ever seen in the duty-free history in our country. And now we have this particular issue, which is no fault of their own. It's not like they can pivot to online sales and pivot their businesses in any other way. And so all they're asking for is fairness and making sure that the federal government, as they look forward to programs that they will probably have to implement in the short term to help Canadians get through this particular difficult time, that they don't forget that there are people employed, and these duty-free shops, as Barbara and Tania have indicated, are significant parts of the local communities in which they operate. And so we hope that there will be some consideration for the duty-free business. Let's just get through this choppy times until we can figure out how we're going to recreate our trading relationship with our largest trading partner and our closest ally.
Yeah, this question for Barbara or Tania or anyone else in the room who wants to take it up. Having not been able to see the letter yet, is there a specific figure you're looking for on the liquidity ask, or is that something that you still need to try to figure out with the feds?
Yeah, the specificity of that we would need to figure out, but here's what I'll say, is we don't need much. We're a very small industry, so whereas I know they're very focused on some of the big industries, I would say on the flip side of that, we're not asking for a lot to help us weather this storm. And the other thing I'll say is that the regulations that we're asking to have aligned or changed would really help us be competitive with our only competitor, which is the United States and the U.S. duty-free stores.
Just with, of course, cross-border traffic, it's down across the country, but are there any particular areas or jurisdictions, where duty-free stores operate, where they're seeing a bigger impact by any chance?
Yeah, sure. I think that the more remote we go, so the further west and the further east that we go in the country, the more difficult it has been for our industry.
For journalists who joined over Zoom, if you have a question, please use the raise hand function. Pour les journalistes qui se sont joints virtuellement, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction main levée si vous voulez poser une question. Emily House, the floor is yours. Emily, we cannot hear you. Unfortunately, Emily, we cannot hear you.
There she is.
Oh, there you go.
For the record, we can hear.
We can hear you, Emily.
We can hear. Oh, okay. Now you can hear me? Okay, yeah, I can see. Sorry. Mayors, I was just wondering what is your relationship like with your counterparts, and are they pushing for the tariffs to be lowered? Like, what is your relationship like with them? What are they telling you, and how hopeful are you about sort of getting the tariffs ended?
Emily, are you talking about U.S. counterparts?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I met with another mayor in Michigan yesterday. I think I've met with about 18 of them in the state of Michigan. Certainly, we've interacted with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, including most recently in Ottawa and at the FCM conference in Ottawa. And I'll tell you, there is little daylight between us. All of these mayors in the U.S. understand the negative impact that will happen with respect to the tariffs to their communities and jobs. I think generally the sense is, if I paraphrase what I'm hearing from folks, that they believe this is the president's way to negotiate, and they don't believe this will get to a point that becomes cataclysmic for either side. And so we've seen the president move forward and make pronunciations on pathways forward, and then back off or amend those things as time gets closer when he's watching the stock market or the bond market. But then we see something like happened in the last week here, where he announces a doubling of the tariffs on steel and aluminum, which is quite troubling for our friends up in Sault Ste. Marie and across our country as well. And so we have some strong allies, both Democratic and Republican. And I think the general sense is they're just thinking this will be resolved, that it won't get to a point that will become too difficult for either country. But while that happens, this is why we're here today, to talk about places like duty-free stores who have to navigate their way through and keep their doors open and pay the bills and the lights on until that smooth pathway is created sometime in the future.
Great, thank you.
Do you have a follow-up question, Emily?
I don't, but if is the mayor of Sarnia still here? I don't see him on the screen.
I'm here, Mike Bradley.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on that as well.
I had somewhat of a different perspective, that we don't have a large number of communities on the other side here. There's a major city, Port Huron. I will say that relationship is somewhat strained, but it varies. When you talk to individual mayors, they are very forthcoming and supportive, but there's also the political fear. And I think that more translates to the senators and the congressmen, and who wants to stand up and be put into that Trump world of political attacks and working against them politically. So it's a real struggle. There's some good people. Drew and I have worked with a lot of Great Lakes mayors, for example, over the last number of years, very supportive of Canadians. But right now it's getting lost in the translation, because Canadians have focused on, they simply do not like what's happening in the U.S. and they're not going. And that's a strong message. I think that's really starting to sink in to the elected people on the other side, that this is a real challenge for them too, politically and in their communities, to rally support Canada. I see it a lot in Michigan. I do not see it as much in other places across the country. But it's, we're all frustrated. This has been a nightmare for 6 months, and it's a nightmare right now that doesn't seem like it's going to end. We can only hope it will, but we continue to do what we do as mayors. We're protecting jobs in our community. We're speaking out on behalf of our communities, and we'll continue to do so. And hopefully we'll continue to bring on more American politicians. And that's what happened the last time Trump was elected. We had senators and congressmen and mayors that all stood up and said, don't do these particular things he was doing, and he backed off. We have a different scenario this time, but I think we're slowly working our way into their mindset to stand up and be supportive.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci, c'est ce qui conclut cette conférence de presse.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.